So you're automatically having to react. With that being said, yes, there are scientific explanations for some of this, but the fact that there are hundreds, if not thousands of reports, like as Kenny said, all over the world, people are seeing something, and deer do stand on two legs. We know when they are, throwing hands or throwing hooves in this case, that, they're on two legs. But why are people seeing them with multiple steps? Science would say a bunch of stuff, but science can't even get fitness right. I mean, just as an example, they can't agree on muscle growth. High reps causes muscle growth, low reps causes muscle growth. So with that being said, what are people seeing? There's reports. There's a lot of reports. There's 911 reports that are filed. I wrote down a couple of them just for throwing them out there. Some of these have places, some of them don't, but most of them have identifications, and there seems to be some common denominators in this as well, which is kind of crosses over into the Bigfoot realm. On January 2nd, 2000, there was a female, age of 41. She heard her name being called from the woods and couldn't figure out what was going on. She was worried about an intruder, calls 911, and she starts walking outside, and then the 911 operator can hear her somebody calling her name. And she says, "What do you see?" And she said, "All I see is this deer standing on two legs looking at me." And then the deer runs off. There were the case it was November 19th, 2005, where a cattle farmer wound up missing a total of 30% of his cows. And so he finally called the authorities. Authorities came out, said, "You know what? You just need to put a bunch of trail cams out and see what happens." And so he puts trail cams out, and it doesn't give a date, but at one point at 1:11 a.m., he sees two of these upright deer walking through a field, and they both look at the camera and then take off running. And the next day, it was the next week, all of a sudden, where those deer were, they find 200 cow hoofs. And then there was an incident. This was the more credible one, I think. Back on 10/11 of 2012, it was a junior wildlife officer in the National Forest in Tennessee, sees a herd of deer. And as he's looking, he sees one deer that's standing up, but its joints are facing backwards. It's got a bloated tummy. And so he calls it in and says,